This is my workstation setup as of late 2025. As someone who makes a full-time living from basically sitting at this desk, I've made a deliberate effort in finding things that make working at this desk more fun and more sustainable. I also made a video of my setup last year, but I thought in this video I would share an update as to some of the things that have changed and also show you the rest of my studio, which also has this workbench. First, as for the desk, this is a whiteboard desk that is made by a company called Fully. Unfortunately, this company got acquired, so you can no longer buy these desks, but you can still find a whiteboard surface desk if you just look for them. This one is a standing desk, which I think is really essential if you do work for long periods of time at your desk. I installed some wheels on the bottom so that I can move it around different places in the room. And this also makes it easy for when I'm moving because I can just roll it around versus having to take apart the desk. Along with this desk, I also have a desk treadmill, which I've had for a few years now, but I didn't talk about it in the last video. The one that I have is made by this company called Walking Pad, and it only takes about 1 minute to set up. This is really nice for when I'm doing something passive, like being a meeting or watching a video. I find that for stuff that is more cognitively intensive, like deep work or writing, it's actually kind of hard for me to be walking simultaneously. But yeah, I think having a walking treadmill is a nice upgrade to the desk. Moving on to the items on the desk itself. So first, let's start with the keyboard. Over the past 10 years, I've tried out a bunch of keyboards. I even made a video on some of my favorite ones. But for the longest time, my all-time favorite keyboard was the hhkb keyboard with blank keycaps. I also really liked the Lenovo ThinkPad keyboard because it has this red nipple in the middle. So you can control the cursor without ever having your hands leave the keyboard. And then recently, hhkb came out with the hhkb Studio, which is basically as if the original hhkb and the Lenovo trackpad had a baby. I've been using this keyboard and I think it's possibly one of my favorite ones of all time because it still has a mechanical feel to it. It's quiet, it has the hhkb layout, and it has the track point keyboard. For me, I find it useful and even more fun to not have to constantly move between the keyboard and the mouse. So having that track point and also just having different keyboard shortcuts have helped me with my productivity. But as for the mouse that I use, I have the Logitech MX Master. This might seem like any other mouse, but there's a way to set up over 25 keyboard shortcuts just through the few buttons that it has. So you can hold down on a button, you can swipe left and right, and those can be different actions. Sometimes when I'm traveling, I really miss having this mouse, especially with things like editing where a mouse is kind of essential. So I also got the smaller version of this mouse that I travel with. To the left of the keyboard, I also have the Magic Trackpad. And maybe you might say it's excessive that I literally have 3 mouse on my desk, but I find it to be really helpful to have multiple forms of input so I can switch things around and not have too much wrist strain. The Magic Trackpad is also really nice for certain apps like with Figma or with Photoshop. It's really nice to be able to zoom in and move stuff around in all different directions. So yeah, I still have a place for the Magic Trackpad on my desk. Besides the keyboard and mouse, on the right, I have my pocket notebook. In my pocket notebook, I usually write down the things I want to get done for that day, and then when I'm done, I just cross it off. As for the monitor setup, it's still largely unchanged from a year ago. So I have 3 different monitors here. The main one is the Apple Studio display, and I have the MacBook Pro on the right, which actually powers the whole thing. And on the left, I have a magnetic iPad stand. I've also been using this monitor light made by BenQ, which can have light on the keyboard and also on the back. This is a nice upgrade because it makes me have less eye strain, especially when I use the setup late at night and the room is darker. But one difference that I made with the monitor setup is that with the iPad, I now just use iPadOS versus extending macOS. The latest update to iPads make it work really similarly to Macs, where there's a dock, there are windows that you can move around, and I like to use this instead of using macOS because sometimes the native iOS apps actually run smoother, and then you can also use your fingers to navigate and use the apps. They've also made it now so you can easily drag your cursor into your iPad and use your keyboard and your mouse pretty seamlessly, so you don't even have to connect it to any extended monitor setup. To the left of my monitor setup, I have the 5th gen iPod, which is one of my favorite things on this desk. So I use this to play stuff like lo-fi beats and even white noise when I'm working. And the reason why I like having this is, well, first, it looks super aesthetic. And second, I like having the audio come from a different device than my computer. Because for example, with lo-fi or with white noise, I can just have that playing on loop for the entire day and it won't affect anything I'm doing on the computer. That way I can control the volume independently while I have other stuff on my computer. But to the right of the iPod, I also still use my Pomodoro timer, which I find to be really useful for time blocking and being focused. So yeah, usually that's just on my desk, or I also have a MagSafe sticker on the back so I can also put it right here, which is also a phone charger. So the laptop laptop here is the maxed out M4 MacBook Pro, which runs the entire setup here, including my filming setup. This is actually one of the most powerful laptops that Apple sells, but I'm really glad I got this because it can do some pretty sick things like running local LLMs. I've set it up to run a local 70 billion parameter model, and that's really nice whenever I want to have private queries or if I'm not connected to the internet, like on a flight, for example. On top of the MacBook Pro, I have my journal. For me, because I journal regularly to track my goals and my life, I like to put my journal on my computer as a constant reminder for me to update in it and to write in it. If you also journal, that's one major tip I would give you to make it easy and obvious for you to write in it. Behind the MacBook, I have my filming setup. So first, I still use the Shure SM7B for my microphone. While I really like how this mic sounds, the only thing about it is that you have to connect it to a bunch of audio boosters and audio interfaces. So I've mounted those things underneath the desk with some 3D printed attachments. Personally, I would recommend a simpler setup. In some of my other videos, I use this way cheaper mic called the Audio-Technica ATR2100X, and it actually sounds just as good, if not better sometimes, after some post-processing. For my camera, I use a Sony a7S III, which is connected to a battery that you can plug in the wall, and also a cam link so I can connect it to the MacBook. I did have to get this dedicated dock made by CalDigit for my Mac and monitor setup, but if you had a simpler setup, you could use the Studio Display as a built-in dock. The one upgrade I've been experimenting with is having a studio light, and so I've been using this one called Elgato for some of my videos. I'm not sure if it makes a big difference, but some of my videos, especially if I'm recording around sunset or even at night, it's super dark. So I think this might help with that. There's also an added benefit of this being a daylight therapy lamp. I find that this actually helps me wake up faster when I'm waking up really early, like before the sun is up. Underneath the desk, on the left is actually a weapon safe, but I just use it to put stuff like USB drives, passports, and important documents. If you use this same journal that I use, which is made by this company called Leuchtturm, it actually fits perfectly in there. So it's also great if you're paranoid about anyone reading your journal. On the right, I have this desk drawer that I mounted underneath the desk. I've been experimenting with 3D printing for about a year now, especially for organizing stuff. I started by printing these organizers that were designed by this other YouTuber named Scott Yu Yang. And then from doing that, I learned how to actually use 3D software. And so I also made my own designs and designed some organizers for my favorite tools. So for example, on the left here, I have the controller for the monitor backlight. To the right of it, I also designed a holder for my favorite tool, the Leatherman, my whiteout. To the right of it, I have a scissor holder, and underneath it, I have a mint holder. Below here, I have some pens, my e-reader, and underneath I have a voice recorder made by Teenage Engineering. I think designing organizers is so satisfying because you essentially give each item a home. After I started 3D printing, it actually made me more appreciative of the design of everyday things, and it makes me think about how I can improve them. And sometimes I'll try to actually do that. The right side of the desk is a work in progress. It takes me a long time to actually design these organizers. Right now, it's usually just some random tech product that I'm testing out. Besides this desk, I have a workbench that I use for tinkering, for DIY, and also as a charging station. The desk and drawer is made by IKEA. On top of the desk, I have things like my tools, a hardware drawer, which a lot of you guys have actually asked me about before. This is a hardware drawer that I just got from Home Depot, and it's really useful for organizing small things. On top of that, I have a charging station for camera batteries and other devices. On the right, I have a printer. Beneath the desk, I have a 3D printer, and this 3D printer that I use is called the A1 Mini, made by Bambu Labs. I think it's one of the best beginner 3D printers, and for me, I think this is as good as I need. When I first started 3D printing, I would just have this in the room, printing basically 24 hours a day. But then I realized that I'm basically just inhaling in microplastics all day. So I would actually recommend not being in the room if you're 3D printing, and probably having proper ventilation or a air purifier. I have that set up now. For the Alex drawers, I also 3D printed organizers within them. And I printed these ones made by this YouTuber called Alexandre Chappelle. I also label them so that they're more organized. I think that's one consistent thing of how I organize things. I found that when you label where a thing should go, they naturally become organized over time because there's a place where it should go. But when I don't have labels, it's easy for things to become cluttered and to just be in a random spot in a drawer. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my studio tour. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. One reason I wanted to make this video is because I am moving pretty soon. So this is a way to kind of capture this memory. And yeah, subscribe if you want to see more of these videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Let's get it.